So you're sitting on 10 grand and asking the question that's been asked a million times in a million different ways. How do I go from $10,000 to $1 million? Let's just pause on that for a second. You're not asking how to make a little side income or how to grow your money slowly over decades. You're asking, how do I do a financial backflip off the top rope, stick the landing, and pull off a 100x return in just 3 years? Most people would stop you right there. They'll hit you with the standard advice. Stick it in the S&P 500 or dollar cost average into index funds, or worse, save. That's like trying to win the Indy 500 in a Honda Civic and wondering why you're still getting lapped. You want to make $1 million? You're going to need to think like someone who builds gravity-defying wealth. And here's the hard truth. 10K won't get you there alone, but it can be your ignition switch. That $10,000? It's not capital. It's leverage to open the right game. Let me explain. There are really only 3 games, 3 vehicles, that have historically taken people from 5 figures to 7 in a few explosive years. Startup/internet businesses, content/creator leverage, high asymmetry investing. Each of these has its own risk profile, upside cap, and skill curve. But they all have one thing in common. When played right, they turn time, attention, or insight into serious compounding momentum. Let's break that down. We'll start with the most controversial. Path 1. Start a profitable internet business. What if your $10,000 wasn't capital to invest, but runway to build? Here's the blueprint. You take your $10,000 and stretch it to survive for 3 months. Rent a studio apartment, work part-time if you have to, and go all in on solving one small, painful problem for a very specific group of people online. Sounds simple, right? That's because it is. But make no mistake, simplicity does not mean easy. Let's look at a case study you won't hear on CNBC. In 2020, a guy named Felix was working a corporate job and hated every second of it. He had saved $8,000 and he decided to gamble with his time. He noticed a Facebook group full of Amazon sellers complaining about how much time they spent answering the same 10 questions to every potential buyer. So what did Felix do? He built a Chrome extension, yes, a tiny browser plugin, that automated canned responses based on frequently asked customer questions. It took him 3 weeks. His MVP? Total cost, $76. Hosting plus domain. He priced it at $19 per month, and within 9 months, he had 2,000 paying users. That's $38,000 per month off a tiny piece of software solving a tiny problem. You run that for 2 years, reinvest the cash into product upgrades, maybe sell a version to Shopify users. And with a well-timed micro-acquisition, there's your $1 million exit. This is the most overlooked part of wealth. Most millionaires didn't hit a lucky home run. They built small, boring businesses that quietly stacked cash. And $10,000 is often the perfect constraint to force lean operations, force community feedback, and force you to get to revenue fast. But what if you're not technical or creative? What if you don't want to build a SaaS or write code at 3 a.m.? That's where the second path opens up. Path 2. Use content to build explosive leverage. Imagine turning your words, your face, or your ideas into assets that work 24/7 while you sleep. Better yet, imagine someone emailing you to say, "Hey, I found your podcast, binge listened to everything, and wired you $25,000 for your consulting program." And then the same thing happens again and again. This is not hypothetical. The fastest growing media entrepreneurs, people like Cody Sanchez, Hormozi, Iman Gadzhi, or even niche operators you've never heard of, are all playing the same metagame. They build trust at scale and then turn that into monetizable credibility. Let's go tactical. You take $2,000 and buy a decent camera mic setup and editing software. You pick a niche you can speak to with earned authority, not just regurgitated Google tips. Maybe it's agency ops, maybe it's solopreneur taxes, maybe it's budgeting for 20-somethings, or AI tools for teachers. Doesn't matter. You create 100 helpful short-form videos, 10 cornerstone YouTube videos, a lead magnet, e.g., free Notion template, chatbot, spreadsheet, a $97 starter product, or $297 cohort/workshop. Then you pick one monetization model: consulting, digital products, coaching, affiliate. Here's the trick. 90% of people quit here. They post for 3 weeks, get 22 views, and walk away. But the ones who don't? They dominate because attention compounds, just like capital. You sprint for 90 days. You hit one viral. You get 3,000 followers. That turns into 300 customers. You reinvest, increase LTV, niche down further, hire an editor, and now you're no longer playing for $10,000 per month. You're on your way to building a mid-6 to low 7-figure digital empire, and you haven't traded time for money. You built a media asset that multiplies your time. This is the new entrepreneurship. Low cost, high leverage, asymmetric reward, and attention is now the new ownership. But maybe content isn't your thing either. Maybe you don't want to be on camera. You want to stay in the shadows, think deeply, and let your money do the work. You're in luck, because the third path is the most anti-hype of them all. Path 3. Finding asymmetry in off-market investing. Let's get uncomfortable, because this is where most people check out. They hear investing and think, that's for rich people. Or worse, they follow meme stocks and get burned by information they barely understood. But what if I told you that the highest return investments I've ever seen weren't even public? One founder put $7,000 into a mobile home park syndicate his friend was raising money for. They bought a mismanaged asset from a guy going through a divorce. In 18 months, they refinanced the park and pulled out nearly double the capital, without even selling. Another guy used $10,000 to buy cash flow rights from a TikTok creator who needed upfront money but didn't want to give up equity. They made a rev share deal, 20% of her monthly digital product revenue, capped at 2.5x. He got his money back in 5 months. ROI? Ridiculous. These are asymmetric plays, low downside, high upside, rare access. But they require 2 things. You know how to network like an adult. Go where operators go. You understand how to assess risk versus uncertainty. And don't forget, great investment ideas are rare. You don't need 20. You need 2 legendary ones in 3 years. Most people lose because they're addicted to doing. But the biggest wins come from patiently watching, learning, and striking precisely when an opportunity feels like a glitch in the matrix. But let me guess, you still want the formula. The exact roadmap step by step. Cool. Let's zoom out. If you want to go from $10,000 to $1 million in 3 years, here's what you need to accept. You have to make big, uncomfortable decisions, fast. You must give up safety for a window of risk. And you have to build or buy something asymmetric, something that isn't scalable with time alone, but is scalable with leverage. That could be tech leverage, content leverage, capital leverage, or insight leverage. But it better not be linear. Now you might be wondering, which one should I pick? Which game fits me best? That's what we're diving into next, because it's not about which path is best. It's about which one you were wired for. And when you combine the right path with the right temperament, that's when the fun begins. Here's the truth nobody tells you. The game you choose has to fit who you are, or you'll eject before the compounding even begins. If you're analytical, introverted, and love going deep on obscure problems, Maybe your path is building a simple SaaS, buying boring digital assets, or doing off-market investing. The difference between dreamers and million-dollar builders is that the latter commit to playing one game obsessively, day in, day out, until the economics crack open. You don't need overnight magic. You need violent focus. Ask yourself, can I afford to lose this $10,000 if everything fails? What edge do I already have that I'm ignoring? Can I commit to doing something boring and valuable long enough for it to pay off? Because when it comes to wealth, nobody's coming to save you. Not your boss, not the market, not that crypto Twitter thread promising passive income by next week. You've got 3 years and $10,000? That's enough to buy time, earn trust, or build momentum, but only if you stop playing the wrong games. And finally, lean all the way in. So pick your game, bet on your edge, and don't aim for the million. Aim for the process that can't help but produce it. Until next time.